Welcome to TCP Live, our Man Cave 2021. We're so delighted that you are here on tonight and joining us via Facebook and YouTube. I ask all of our connectors to greet each other in our chat or in our comment section. Greet each other. You know how we do. And I want to remind you to like, share, and to subscribe to us on Facebook and our YouTube channels. All right, so tonight's discussion is all about the great investment, health and wellness for our men on tonight. So we're so excited for this panel of great men who are here, who are joining us on tonight. So I would, if you would take the time to introduce yourselves to our audience, and we'll dive in afterwards.
Well, I guess I'll go first. My name is Clifton Farrar, owner of Farrar Financial Group that I partner with my wife and that we help people with their finances. So that's it.
My name is Damon Miller. I'm a grief pre-need counselor here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
My name is Jamil Aaron. I am in Charlotte, North Carolina. Also, I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm into several different types of businesses, one being real estate.
Okay, we have a couple more.
My name is DJ Miller. I'm a rising freshman at Greensboro College.
All right, and we have another guest on our Zoom, Dr. Brian Shackelford.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the kind introduction that you already did. But once again, Dr. Brian Shackelford here in Greensboro. I'm a primary care physician, and just all about preventing comorbidities in the African American community. So it's a pleasure to be able to talk to God's people tonight.
All right, well, welcome. We are so glad that you all are here and looking forward to a great discussion on tonight. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about the health aspect of this conversation. Okay, and I'm so glad this is the men's cave because I want to find out, let's deal with the elephant in the room, why men do not go to the doctor. I just want to put that out there right now. Let's address that. Is that all right?
All right.
Why don't y'all go to the doctor?
I go.
Okay.
I do my checkups. I go at least twice a year for my checkups to make sure everything is put together and working properly.
Okay.
Because I want to be here as long as I can.
Okay.
Well, for me, for a long time, it was, I guess, the lack of knowledge and somewhat some fear. For a lot of portion of my life, I didn't have health insurance. So if I didn't feel like anything was wrong, there was no need to seek any medical attention, not thinking about checkups and those type of things. So I probably went years without any type of health checkups or anything like that.
I do feel like it's a learned behavior because our previous generation didn't go to the doctor, then it passed down to our generation, and we just don't go for various reasons.
Okay. I want to pass this question over to Dr. Shackelford. Usually, I'm in healthcare as well, and primarily we see a lot of women who come who are more concerned about their health. And do you know any reasons or what you're seeing in your practice as to why men do not come to the doctor?
Yes. Man, there's a lot of generational mistrust, honestly, that's been passed down in the Black male community. Honestly, due to what has been done to the Black male community and the lack of care that we have received, there is florid mistrust, and I don't want to be too historical, but going back to our grandfathers' generations with the Tuskegee experiment that still gets passed on. And honestly, if dad didn't go and hasn't taught you that preventative health is extremely important, you're going to be less likely to go. So what I've seen a lot is trying to break those generational curses of one, not having the knowledge base to go because, hey, I don't feel bad, so I don't need to go to the doctor, or two, doctors aren't going to do right by me. Studies have shown that a lot of males, especially black males, will go to black male physicians because they are represented, and there's underrepresentation in medicine when it comes to black male, whether it's nurse practitioner, physician assistant, or even on the MD or medical doctor level. The other thing is the elephant in the room. A lot of us just don't feel like we need to go. And I say this because I too was a victim of not going to the doctor. I know it sounds oxymoronic to be a doctor, but I literally just got my first primary care physician since I was a 18-year-old, probably 3 or 4 years ago. It's one of those things I didn't feel the need because I felt good. Oh, this is that, this is that. No, it's one of those things that the healthcare disparities that our community has, we need to address them pretty quickly, especially in the black male community. And I hope I get the opportunity to talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But those are kind of the things I've seen. There's a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of misinformation. And honestly, there's not a lot of exposure and opportunity provided to African American men.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. That mistrust exists. So this month is recognized as Men's Health Month. What do you think would be, what are some of the key things that men should be looking for, as it relates to their health? If there's any reason that they would go to the doctor, what are the key things? If you could just lay that out and our men can hear it and say, okay, I know I need to see the doctor for this, that, and the other. If you could do that, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. No worries whatsoever. The big things that you kind of have to look at is the comorbidities or the conditions that really affect our community. So the silent killer is hypertension. A lot of African American males suffer with hypertension, and we honestly don't know it until our first bout of what we call angina or chest pain. And by that time, it's usually a little bit too late, and we're dealing with something that could have been prevented if we had gone to the doctor our 20s and 30s and made sure that, our blood pressures were fine. The other thing is honestly obesity and diet. A lot of times we don't go to the doctor and we don't get the nutritional aspect kind of talked about. I think that in a wellness visit, it's always good to go over what are we eating because, a lot of our foods are a little bit more sultry and soul foodish, and this is the summer, and I know for myself I like to grill out, but there's also everything in moderation, and a lot of that training and knowledge that we need we kind of miss out by not going to the doctor. And the other thing honestly is diabetes runs rampant in the African American male community as well. So those three things are big for everyone to get checked out about, and as guys progress and we kind of get in the 40s and 50s, our prostate checks as well. Prostate cancer usually is caught way advanced in the African American male community. When it is caught, it's usually because we're starting to feel bad and it's metastasized to the bone. I speak personally because my father recently got diagnosed and I believe sat on it just a little bit too long. But thanks be to God, he's been able to have a recovery and is in remission. So that's one of those things that I feel that every black male needs to have in their annual checkup once they get of age.
Wow, that's great information. So you mentioned a couple of things: hypertension, the silent killer, still the silent killer. So part of that annual wellness visit, let me just ask you, do you recommend that our men maybe a couple of times a year, because it's a silent killer, would you recommend that our men have their blood pressure checked often throughout the year just to kind of know where they are so that it doesn't creep up on them, like you said, and then lead to heart disease, kidney disease, because, a lot of things, diseases are a result of hypertension. So what do you think, a couple of times a year or just annually?
Oh no, you could do more than a couple of times a year. I'll say that at your annual visit, you definitely should have it checked, but you should also be checking it at home as well. There are times where, I know we've all had the time where we just don't feel well. We got that nagging headache that won't go away. maybe during that time, if you have a blood pressure monitor, check your blood pressure to see what's going on at that time. It could be something, or a little bit of hypertension trying to creep up. So I honestly would check it whenever you felt symptomatic, whether that's any chest discomfort, headache, any weird feeling, but also I check it quarterly. That's one of those things that you want to have an open relationship with your primary care physician about, like, hey, let's check my blood pressure. I know it was good at your office, but check it a couple times today and I'm running a little bit high. What's going on? Because there's a lot of small new things like dietary changes and lifestyle modification that can prevent you from, one, getting on high blood pressure medicine, but can also, I say, cure hypertension without even blood pressure medicine.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely correct. And that just kind of leads me to the next question. What are some of those examples, rather, of modifications that, our men can do at home to improve their health?
Yes, ma'am. So I will tell any guy that comes and is slightly overweight, and I'm not huge to just press, you need to be skinny, because it's not about being skinny, it's about being healthy. The one thing I will say, though, is my obese men usually run high blood pressure just because of the weight. Studies show that every kilogram that you lose takes 1 to 2 digits or millimeters of mercury off your blood pressure. So, for example, if your blood pressure is 150 over 90 and you lose 20 pounds or about 10 kilograms, you can expect that blood pressure to go down to about 130 over 70, which is pretty normal with it. So it's all about exercise. I recommend that guys are doing some sort of exercise and cardio 3 times a week, at least 30 to 60 minutes, with a little bit of non-invasive or non-strenuous exercise the other days. I really want them to exercise 5-6 times a week, even if it's nothing but taking the family on a walk for those other days, as well as our diet. Our diet is so soul food and so just amazingly flavorful. But with that flavor comes a little bit of salt and other preservatives that increase the body's ability to raise the blood pressure in and of itself. So cutting back on the fried foods, cutting back on the salt and preservatives would go and do wonders in regards to the blood pressure. Yeah.
So what I hear you say, eat fresh, eat fresh and eat to include more healthy foods in your diet. That's what I hear you saying.
Yes, ma'am. That is one. Yes, ma'am. That is huge. And I won't tell anybody not to cut out the foods that they love, but I do believe everything in moderation. There's an old adage that anything in too large of a quantity is a poison. Whether that's food, whether that's water, anything can become toxic to the body. So I'm not saying, hey, if you love your fried chicken or you just have to have that huge ribeye, that I'm not going to say stop eating it. What I am going to say is, instead of doing this every week, every other day, maybe this is something that you need to see as a cheat day or a treat. Like, hey, I've met this goal that me and my doc assigned. Let me do this. Just making sure that it is something that's periodic and not a routine. And a lot of times, due to how hard we work to support family and just what we do, we don't have the time to eat better, always trying to provide and take care, but make sure that we're taking care of ourselves as well, so we can continue to be here for our families and for the generations behind us. I believe that God wants us to prosper and be in health, and that's not just, physically prosper, but that's also in health prosper as well, to have that generational wealth to pass on to our families, both financially and from a physical and spiritual standpoint.
Okay. Well, let's kind of poll the guys to see how they're doing with their health, since they're here tonight. How do you guys maintain your health? How would you say you are active or what?
I'm gonna sit this one out.
We especially want to hear from you.
I'm gonna sit this one out.
I think I exercise, typically daily. Sometimes I try to do 2 times a day, but if not, I definitely in the morning time. I think my biggest thing is my diet, working on the diet and really cutting out the foods that I really love. I think that's the biggest thing at this point.
Yeah, basically, well, for me, it became very personal. I lost my father to heart disease. So I became very driven for my health. And that's why I go to the doctor at least twice a year. And as far as eating, just like Dr. Shackelford said, it's moderation. So I do not cut out everything. But, you know, if I have something to eat, like I have a consistent eating plan. It's either toast and oatmeal in the morning. I work out at least 4 to 5 days a week. And just watch what I eat mainly. Not a lot of fried food. Like this evening, I cooked grilled chicken, grilled salmon, rice, and broccoli and cheese.
Wow, we're coming over after this.
I had to cook before I left the house. But it's really moderation. So I will eat my chips and dips. I will eat my Oreos, but it's not an everyday thing. I can go a week without eating anything sweet, honestly, and drinking water, because water's a filler, and coffee as well. So, yeah.
That's true. Do you want to add anything?
Me being an athlete, of course you gotta stay in shape really, but like the other guy said, it's really just the food. I like good food, and all good food ain't healthy. So I feel like that's one of the biggest things, but yeah, that's really it.
Yeah, Dr. Shackelford, obesity is like the number one, main contributor to heart disease and diabetes in particular, a major comorbidity in African American communities, in our communities. And I don't know the statistics, but, you know, we all know somebody with diabetes. And, you know, what can you say to help us in addition to diet and exercise and the weight loss? Anything else that you can think of to help us combat this or even prevent it? Anything we haven't mentioned already?
Yeah, so honestly, this is where, and I know I'm looking up in the gaze, and I promise I'm looking to heaven, but this is one of those things where I really do feel where a lot of prayer, because honestly, studies have shown that there are individuals, once you become obese, that your brain is rewired to see food as a reward, and your body almost becomes addicted to food. Almost you get the same dopaminergic rush that individuals who have like either marijuana or cocaine or other drug addictions get after they get their fix. So honestly, I believe prayer and the spiritual aspect and support systems are so important. I don't have any qualms praying for patients or praying with patients, checking up with patients to make sure that they're meeting their goals. And the reason I say goals is because I'll just be 100% honest with you. I was a 280-pound 17-year-old who decided that I didn't want that for my life after I was pre-diabetic at 17. Relearning how to, one, think outside of the role of obesity, learning how to, one, have portion control, and learning how to set goals, because it can be a daunting challenge. This isn't something that's going to come off overnight. It's something that took you a long bit of time to accrue and to get to that size. So everything is very small and ordered. And hey, let's celebrate this 5 pounds. Let's celebrate the fact I went a week or two without my favorite food, or let's celebrate I'm starting to exercise. So honestly, to find the gratification and the self-empowerment through prayer and support, I think is the biggest thing, because honestly, to prevent starting medications, the big legwork is going to be done through diet and exercise.
Okay. That's great. That's great information. And it just sounds like a lifestyle change and gradual as you go along. So thank you. Now, I'm going to make a hard turn here, and let's talk about a little bit about financial health. You know, we've talked about health, but let's talk about our financial health and any tips, you know, from our men. What does that mean, rather, to be financially healthy? What does that mean for you and for your family? I think we have all husbands here, with the exception of DJ back there. What does that mean?
Being financially healthy is so important. Many times a health crisis come because of financial crisis. And a lot of times why people don't go to the doctor because I'm trying to work. I don't want to take no time off to even go to the doctor to make money. So one of the things I teach, and well, my wife and I teach, I did a class called Budget Boot Camp. And it's 2 statements that I tell people that would change your financial life. The first statement is, remove your emotion from your money. We are emotional spenders, men and women. But money understands 2 colors, black and red. Either you're in the black or you're in the red, which means either in the black you have money or you're in the red you don't have money. But you cannot let your emotions drive your spending habits. Many of us would do it, men and women. You have a bad day at work, what you do? I go shopping, or I'm going to go buy my favorite food. I'm going to go buy my favorite restaurant. Pray and take it to Jesus. Don't go spend your money, because after you spend your money, guess what? That problem is still there. The other thing I teach people is think of yourself as a business, as a brand. Think of yourself as a business, as a brand. So I make people write down, I am the business of your name. And when you walk out every day, when you wake up every day, think of yourself as a business or as a brand. And you have to invest into your business or into your brand. How many of y'all would go to your job today and they come and tell you right before payday and say, guess what? We can't pay you today or pay you tomorrow because we wanted to get a new jet. How good does that company look? How good does that brand look? We think that's ridiculous, but we do that to ourselves all the time.
Wow.
We do. We will not pay ourselves. We will not invest in ourselves. We will not take the time to budget our money. And what kind of brand is that representing?
Wow.
So that is my thing on financial health is a priority, because there's no money problem. There is no money problem. There's no money problem. The average American spends $101 a day. The average household income is $51,000, the average salary. We spent last year $10.7 trillion as Americans.
Wow.
So there's no shortage of money. It's a shortage of priority. So that's my take.
Wow.
That's good. I don't even know how to follow that one up. He had a lot of the good points. What I will add is I think it's important to financial health is to educate ourselves. I didn't grow up and have anybody sit down and talk to me about credit, budgeting, investing. First thing I did when I went to college was they had the banks were all set up right there, and I took off every credit card they would give me, not knowing it would take me 7 years after that to get back on track. So I feel like we have to educate ourselves. Get a good accountant if you have some money coming in who can tell you, give you a breakdown on where your finances are going. Taxes. I mean, there's so many ways to save. I didn't realize how a good tax accountant can really put you in a great position. We learned that from Trump too. And a lot of those things, just being honest, a lot of those things weren't necessarily illegal. There was just that they were put into place, and his accountant was smart enough to be able to use some of those things to save him money. And we have, now that they're with the influx of social media and Google and all this type of stuff, we have more access to the education on increasing our financial health.
Now, I want to ask, and thank you so much, both of you, when you talk about education, not only for savings and budget and that sort of thing, what about planning for the future? How do we secure our family? What's your thoughts about that? And how, Damon, can you help us with that?
Well, it takes, again, education, but it also takes time for you to sit down with your family to figure out what my future look like. What do our future look like as a family? I have a sister, Pam. She always says life insurance is the cheapest insurance that you can ever get. And so we would spend $50 at Chick-fil-A, but we won't spend $50 on a premium to get life insurance to secure our future for our family. Typically, in our African-American community, we think about life insurance to pay for a funeral. Really, it's not for that. Life insurance is for life, and for the people that you leave behind. One good scripture that I love, that a man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. What does that look like? Not leaving them in debt. not leaving them scuffling to pay their bills after you have gone. I sit down with couples and husband and wives all the time, and I say, if Mr. is gone, what does your life look like? If Mrs. is gone, what does your life look like? And if you don't have an answer for that, then they have to definitely go back home and figure out a way of how we can secure our future, because right now we don't have it.
So when you talk about that, you're really speaking of, I mean, do you have something laid out? What about wills? What about, you know, what are your thoughts about wills? Do you have wills? You recommend wills?
I recommend a will for the simple fact that it gives you structure. A will lay out where you want the funds to go, what you need to do for your family. And it makes it easier in the transition, because my wife and I just buried her grandmother last Friday. And having a will keeps everything in order. So I tell people all the time, because it's up to us to secure our future. It's up to us to be educated. There's no reason why we cannot be educated now. You can ask Google, Siri, anything to become just a novice about it. You can learn about it. And of course, if you really want to go deep into it, you sit down with a financial planner, an investor, or somebody that you trust, or earn the trust to learn how to grow. So having a will is paramount. Mm-hmm. It's paramount. That way you know where your money is going, where your property is going, because if you don't have a will, then you're living in the hands of a state. And then there goes all these red tapes and things you got to go through just for something that rightfully belongs to you. But, you know, you got to take the time. It's all about priority. Do you want to take the time to do it? And it's not even a question, do you want to? You have to.
Yeah, I will say that's a hard thing, though. You know, when you start talking about death and dying and, you know, having that conversation can be really hard. It's not something you just want to, around the dinner table, talk about.
Well, I've learned a lot through watching other cultures, and I'm sorry if I'm talking too much. My wife and my children went to Williamsburg to vacation, and my wife and my daughter left me and my son and went to a nail shop. The nail shop, they were sitting there, somehow they got to talking to the owners in the nail shop. And the owners told them that their matriarch and patriarch of the family is their uncle and aunt that lives in Florida. So that they have several nail shops throughout the country. All the profit they send back home to the matriarch and the patriarch. They cut them a check, they pay their bills, they pay them their houses, and they give them allowance for the month. So the matriarch and patriarch flew up to Virginia, took them down to the Mercedes dealership, brought them a brand new S-Class, and said, because you guys have been making the most money for this family, we're going to reward you. Other cultures talk about this. Other cultures set a standard. It's not nothing scary. It's just life. You got to have this stuff in place. It's nothing we don't want to talk about it because we think of death in a negative manner, but it's a reality. We're going to pass along. I tell my children all the time, I am preparing and training replacements because I know I'm not going to be here. I'm training a replacement. So as a family unit, if you really, really love your family, this is the time you sit around and say, hey, we need to get our things in order. Because if we don't do it, somebody else will, and they're going to take advantage of your family and all your hard work and everything that you love.
We typically, in our family, we talk about finances a lot, and my son is back here as well. So we talk about saving. We talk about not spending everything that you have. We always talk about having something for a rainy day. And I want to talk to my son for him to tell people, why is it important to save as a young man? Help us on that.
Because at any time, something can go wrong. Us being young, especially me, everything is really about being fly, being the best-looking person on the scene. But in reality, it's really not about that. It's about really being young and building your foundation now, so when you get older, you won't have to struggle.
And I teach my son this and my family this because the way I came up. I came up in a place where my grandmother, she did the best she could. She didn't have all of the money in the world, but she had knowledge to help us when we got older to learn how to save, to learn how to invest, to learn how to put money back into your own family. And that's what I'm teaching my family, to do the same thing at this point.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Nothing to add. Wow, that is wonderful. And if all of our youth could learn how to save and the importance of saving, that would be definitely help them in the future. Wow. So, any other tips that you might think, to help our audience rather, how to financially be successful? Jamil, you're in real estate. You have lots of ventures. Talk a little bit about entrepreneurship.
So, and I'll start with saying that entrepreneurship is, I believe it's somewhat of a calling, so to speak. I mean, it's one of our 7 mountains when we talk about the business side of things. And it's not for everybody. Everybody is not called to be a business owner. There are people who are successful in the corporate world. So, don't put too much stress on yourself to become an entrepreneur because it looks great. I am not guaranteed a check weekly or bi-weekly or monthly. Some months are better than others. Sometimes you have to go without. So there is no, budgeting can be different for an entrepreneur because you can estimate, but you never know really for sure what that bottom line looks like until it actually comes in. So, but it gives me the freedom. I've always known since college that was going to be where I was going to be in entrepreneurship, not just because I wanted to be my own boss, but I felt that strong pulling towards being in business. And, it's a blessing because not only am I just self-employed, God has blessed me to be able to be an employer. And that comes with sometimes my employee, the staff. And I'm somebody who doesn't use the terminology employee. I like to call them actually my coworkers because we're in it together. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm check to check just as well, so to speak. So but it's a calling, and it's not for everybody in every situation. And it's risky. Business is risky. I'm somebody who sits here. I have a couple successful businesses, but I sit here with 4 unsuccessful businesses under my belt that I've had to look at. But the good thing was, instead of taking those things, which we talk about on Monday nights in Time in the Word, instead of taking those things as losses, I'm looking at them as lessons. And I think that's important. But just know, if you jump into entrepreneurship, full time, it's a risk involved. But with great risk, there's also great reward. So you have to assess what your risk level, absolutely.
I know growing up, we always say we want to be like Michael Jordan. I couldn't shoot a ball to save my life, but I always wanted to be like Michael Jordan because that's what we were taught, to find someone and try to be like them. But I think we need to change the narrative, especially as men, that we need to find who we are, find what works for us. Just because Minister Jamil is a successful business person, that may not be me.
That's true.
I may be the person who just learned how to invest. But I think as men, we just need to find what works for us and giving our children the opportunity to find out what works for them.
That is a great way to end this tonight. It's important that you know who you are so that you and your gifts so that you can maximize that while you're able to and leave a great inheritance to your family. So listen, family, we are so delighted that you were able to participate and be a part of our services on tonight, our TCP Live on tonight, our 4th installment of the Men's Cave. And this has been a great session. I want to thank each of our participants. Dr. Shackelford, thank you so much for being a part of our audience on tonight. And so as we transition, if you are in need of prayer or you have some concerns about who you are and what you should be doing, we invite you to call our church office. We have staff who are available to pray with you and to help you through tough times. We invite you to call us at 704-399-5448. If you would like to connect with us as well, that's a great way to do that. Please visit us on our website as well. We would love to connect with you, pray with you, and help you to move to the next place in your life. Well, family, it's time for our opportunity to give. So if tonight is your night, if this is your week to give, the first level of giving is our tithe, rather. That is a tenth of your gross earnings. And, that's our gift back to God. We owe him that. Everything that we have belongs to the Lord. We give him back simply 10%, and he blesses us with the 90. So if tonight is your night, I want you to prepare yourself to give your tithe. And for those of you who are sowing a seed tonight, we ask you to pray about your offering and give generously as the Lord leads you. Either way, we lift up your tithe, we lift up your offering before the Lord. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to give. We pray that you would bless those who are sowing their tithe. You promise to open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing that we would not have room enough to receive. And Lord, likewise, you said you would bless those who sow, and God, that you would bless them good measured, pressed down, running over, you'll cause men to give unto their bosom. And so tonight we thank you for the blessing of the tither and the sower. And so on tonight, we just appreciate your attention again and your presence with us. So if you were blessed, again, like us, share on social media, and subscribe to our social media outlets. Well, that's all we have for you tonight. The Lord bless you. May his face shine upon you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and grant you great peace. May the Lord bless your going out and your coming in from this time until we meet again. God bless you. We love you. Be blessed.